You're sitting in a cafe near an airport, pretending to care about a cup of tea that's already gone cold. 3 tables away, a man you've spent months studying checks his watch and glances toward the window. He looks ordinary. That's what makes him dangerous. On paper, he's a businessman. In classified reports, he's the center of a network moving money, messages, and people across borders. Your phone buzzes once. No words. No instructions. Just a signal that something farther up the chain has already been decided. You don't move. That's the part most people never understand. The job is rarely about dramatic action. It's about control. Control over your face, your breathing, your habits, your fear. In a few minutes, someone else may act on the intelligence you helped build. But your part of the story started years earlier, long before you were sitting in this chair, long before you had a cover identity, long before anyone trusted you with something this sensitive. Because in an agency that doesn't officially exist, you do not begin as a legend. You begin at the bottom, where nobody knows whether you belong. Level 1. Candidate. At the first level, candidate does not mean you've been hired, it means you've been noticed. Someone somewhere has decided you may have the right combination of discipline, intelligence, language ability, discretion, or psychological resilience. You are not inside the organization yet. You are standing at the edge of it while it quietly measures your life. How do you get here? Usually not by applying. You get here because your background overlaps with things this kind of system values: military experience, technical skills, regional expertise, signals work, diplomatic exposure, or simply the ability to function under pressure without talking too much. A quiet approach is made, the language is vague, the questions are specific, your daily responsibilities at this stage are almost invisible because the real work is happening to you, not by you. Background investigations expand. Interviews become more precise. Your finances, travel patterns, habits, and vulnerabilities are examined. You may still be working your normal job, but you begin to sense that somebody is testing whether your life can withstand secrecy. Typical earnings here are not the point yet. If compensation exists, it may come through an ordinary-looking contract, temporary assignment, or government pathway. But the real currency is access. If you fail, the door closes and probably never opens again. The danger at this level is not physical. It is exposure, disqualification, or self-elimination. One lie, one undisclosed relationship, one debt problem, one unstable habit, and the system decides you are too risky. Micro scenario. You sit in a quiet interview room while a man across the table asks about a trip you took 6 years ago. You barely remember it. He knows the hotel, the dates, and the person you met for dinner. In that moment, you realize this process is not asking what you know. It is testing whether you can stay calm when other people know more about you than you expected. How do you move up? You survive scrutiny. You prove consistency. You show that your life can be compartmentalized without falling apart. Level 2, trainee. If you pass selection, you do not become a field operator overnight. You become a trainee. This rank means the organization is now spending time and money to see whether you can be remade into someone useful. This is where the fantasy starts to die. Training is not built around looking impressive. It is built around becoming forgettable. You learn surveillance detection, reporting discipline, memory drills, social adaptation, cover behavior, and the art of appearing harmless. A person who looks too sharp, too proud, too forceful, or too military often stands out for exactly the wrong reasons. Trainees usually earn somewhere in the range of a serious government or intelligence salary, enough to suggest commitment but not enough to compensate for what the life will require. The benefits are stability, access, and a future track upward. The cost is that your personal life begins to shift immediately. You become harder to explain even to the people closest to you. Micro scenario. You are given a photograph of an average-looking man and told to follow him through a city for 6 hours without this being noticed. 2 hours in, an instructor shows you 3 photos taken of you from 3 different angles. You never saw the people who took them. That is when you understand the first rule of the hierarchy. If you can be seen, you are not ready. From here, the ladder begins to rise. The next levels stop asking whether you can survive the system. They start asking whether you can serve it. Once training stops feeling like training, the hierarchy changes. You are no longer being tested just to see if you belong. Now you are expected to be useful. The early ranks are where the agency teaches you a hard truth. The glamorous version of covert work is built on a mountain of ordinary discipline. Reports, routines, observation, language work, and patience come first. Power comes much later. Level 3, Junior Field Officer. This is your first real operational rank. Junior Field Officer means you are trusted enough to enter the edge of live work, but not trusted enough to shape it. You follow procedures, you carry out surveillance runs, you observe meeting sites, you verify patterns, you submit reports that are read by people above you who decide what matters. How do you reach this level? By surviving training and proving that you can follow instructions without adding ego to the process. At this stage, reliability matters more than creativity. The hierarchy wants to know that if you are told to sit, watch, record, and leave, you can do exactly that. Your daily responsibilities are small from the outside and exhausting from the inside. You watch buildings, you learn routines, you memorize entrances, exits, vehicles, faces, and timing. You build familiarity with neighborhoods and social patterns. You may assist in source meetings without leading them. You may maintain a cover job that looks painfully dull because dullness is what keeps you alive. Typical earnings might sit in the broad range of a skilled intelligence professional, enough to reflect specialization but not seniority. Level 4, Field Agent. This is the level people imagine when they think of spy work. But even now, reality is slower and more human than fiction. A field agent is not just watching. A field agent is beginning to interact, assess, and build access through other people. The name means you are no longer only supporting operations. You are participating in them directly. You may begin spotting potential sources, nurturing contacts, making controlled approaches, or holding low-risk meetings undercover. This rank requires emotional intelligence more than bravado. You need to read people, judge motives, and stay calm in environments where every conversation may carry hidden consequences. How do you get here? You prove you can be invisible and dependable. Then you prove you can handle proximity. Watching a target is one thing. Sitting across from a nervous intermediary and keeping the conversation natural is another. Pay increases here, often into a range that reflects real responsibility, overseas hardship, and specialized skills. There may be housing support, travel allowances, or quiet incentives tied to difficult postings. But the money never fully reflects the strain. At this point, the job follows you into your sleep. Micro scenario. You sit across from a local accountant in a near-empty tea shop. He says he only wants to talk about import paperwork. Then he slides one name across the table and watches your face. If you react too strongly, he shuts down. If you act too cold, he walks. Your whole job in that moment is to make one dangerous exchange feel boring. But here's something most people outside the organization never realize. The most important people in the system are not always the ones holding the highest titles. In the middle ranks, one careful field officer can change the direction of an operation more than a room full of executives. That is why promotion gets harder from here. Skill is no longer enough. Judgment starts to matter more. The next step up the ladder is where judgment becomes the job. Once you move beyond field level work, the hierarchy stops rewarding simple competence. Now it rewards judgment under uncertainty. Every higher rank gives you more control, but it also removes excuses. If something fails below you, your decisions are part of the failure. If something succeeds, your reward is often just more responsibility. Level 5. Operations Officer. An operations officer is the person who turns scattered field activity into a coherent mission. The title means you are no longer just collecting pieces, you are arranging them. You decide which contacts are worth pursuing, which meetings are too risky, which officers can handle certain environments, and when a promising lead is actually a trap. You reach this level after proving that you understand not just what happened, but what should happen next. Your daily work becomes more strategic, planning meeting windows, reviewing surveillance reports, approving cover stories, coordinating with analysts, technical teams, and senior officers. Every decision becomes a calculation between value and exposure. Typical compensation rises again, often into the range associated with senior intelligence management, but by now salary matters less than operational trust. The danger at this level is that other people's safety rests partly on your judgment. Micro scenario, a source asked to move a meeting from an office district to a crowded market. It sounds harmless, but the timing overlaps with a local security sweep and a religious holiday that will flood the streets. You cancel the meeting. The source is angry. 2 days later, arrests hit the district. That one boring decision keeps 3 people from disappearing into a prison system you will never be able to publicly discuss. You move up by showing you can protect the mission, not just advance it. Level 6, Senior Agent / Station Chief. At the senior operational level, titles may vary, but the function is clear. You are now responsible for people, assets, and outcomes across a whole environment. Whether your title is Senior Agent or Station Chief, the meaning is the same. You carry command weight. You reach this position after years of surviving field strain, managing delicate sources, and proving you can hold pressure without unraveling. Your responsibilities include supervising multiple officers, approving sensitive contact chains, managing relationships with allied services, and deciding when the value of intelligence no longer justifies the risk of continuing. The money is strong by ordinary standards. The access is immense. The burden is worse. By this point, promotions do not give you freedom. They take it away. Every decision can affect careers, diplomatic friction, arrests, or deaths. Micro scenario, you are woken at 2:13 a.m. because a source has panicked and wants extraction. If you move too fast, you expose the network. If you move too slowly, the source may be killed. You have 5 minutes to choose between a controlled burn of months of work or a gamble that may cost a life. There is no perfect option. Only consequences. How do you move beyond this? Very few people do. To rise again, you must stop thinking like an operator and start thinking like the institution itself. Level 7, Directorate, Commander. This is the top of the visible ladder inside an invisible system. A Directorate Commander does not run one meeting, one officer, or one city. This rank shapes priorities across regions, disciplines, and years. Human intelligence, technical collection, covert support, budgeting, liaison relationships, and mission approval all run through this level in one form or another. You get here by proving that you can make hard decisions without needing recognition, and that you understand the full machine, not just one piece of it. Your daily responsibilities are strategic, resource allocation, risk approval, personnel selection, political coordination, deciding which threat matters now and which one can wait. Salaries here are high, but the real currency is institutional power. Micro scenario. 3 operations compete for the same limited support package. One could disrupt weapons financing. One could protect a source embedded near a hostile government. One could support a capture mission already in motion. You cannot fully fund all 3. Whatever you choose will help someone and fail someone else. That is what the top of the hierarchy really looks like. Not authority without limits, but consequence without escape. By this point in your career, the job stops feeling like training and starts feeling like gravity. Everything moves slower. Not because the work is easier, but because the consequences are heavier. At the lower levels, mistakes are embarrassing. At the middle levels, mistakes become dangerous. This is where the organization begins trusting you with something far more fragile than information. People. Level 8. Operations Officer. The title, Operations Officer, means you are no longer just collecting intelligence. You are designing how intelligence gets collected. You decide which sources are worth approaching. You decide when meetings happen. You decide which risks are acceptable and which ones will destroy the mission. Getting here takes years. Field work. Surveillance runs. Dozens of reports that prove you understand how operations unfold in the real world. When you finally reach this level, your job becomes part strategist, part psychologist. Your day often starts with briefings, source reports. Some officers stay at the operations level for their entire career. It's demanding, it's respected, and it's dangerous enough. But a few move further. These are the officers who stop managing pieces of missions and start carrying the mission itself. Level 9, Senior Agent. By the time you become a senior agent, you've lived several lives. Different cities, different cover identities, different languages. The job now revolves around high-value sources, people sitting close to power, government insiders, military officials, financial intermediaries, people who can change the direction of an investigation with a single conversation. You are the person responsible for managing those relationships. That means trust, patience, and constant paranoia. Senior agents typically earn $150,000 to $180,000, sometimes more depending on location and operational responsibility. But the salary doesn't capture the stress, because sources at this level are extremely fragile. If exposed, they don't just lose their jobs, sometimes they lose their lives. Micro scenario, you're sitting across from a nervous government official in a dim restaurant. He slides a napkin across the table, 3 names written on it. If the information is real, it reveals an entire financing network. If it's false, it's a trap designed to expose you. You take the napkin, you finish your meal, you leave like nothing happened. But that tiny piece of paper might trigger arrests across 3 countries. And if it does, your name will appear nowhere in the story. The path upward from here is extremely narrow. Very few officers move beyond this point, because the next rank stops being about running operations. It becomes about running entire regions. This is where the hierarchy changes again. You are no longer judged by the missions you complete. You are judged by the missions you approve. The work becomes less personal and far more consequential. Level 10. Station Chief. Every country where the organization operates has a leader, the Station Chief. From the outside, this person may appear to be a diplomat, a cultural attaché, or a senior advisor working inside an embassy. But behind the scenes, they control the entire intelligence operation for that region. Every field officer, every source, every surveillance program, every covert contact. All of it ultimately flows through the station. You reach this level after years of operational success and a reputation for calm decision-making under pressure. Station chiefs typically earn $180,000 to $200,000, along with extensive diplomatic benefits. But the job comes with enormous weight. Every operation approved here carries international consequences. Micro scenario, a team asks permission to approach a scientist working inside a hostile government. If the recruitment works, the intelligence could shift an entire strategic program. If it fails, the scientist could disappear into prison, and your officers could be expelled from the country. You have 10 minutes to make the decision. Approve it. Delay it. Or shut the operation down entirely. No matter what you choose, someone will live with the consequences. And so will you. Above this level sits the final layer of the hierarchy, a level that very few people ever see. At the top of the ladder, the work changes again. You are no longer managing individual operations. You are shaping the direction of the entire organization. Level 11, Directorate Commander. A Directorate Commander oversees entire divisions, human intelligence, technical surveillance, cyber operations, paramilitary coordination. Instead of asking, how do we run this mission, you start asking bigger questions. Which threats matter most? Which regions deserve attention? Which operations are worth the risk? This level controls budgets, personnel, strategy, resources that can span continents. Compensation here can exceed $220,000 a year, but by now the money barely registers, because something else has happened along the way. You've spent decades inside a system built on secrecy. Micro scenario, you sit in a secure conference room reviewing 3 major operations competing for the same resources. One could dismantle a weapons network. One could protect a deeply embedded source. One could stop a planned attack. You cannot fund all 3. Whatever you choose will shape events in places most people will never see. And someone will pay the price for the operation you decline. This is the part of the hierarchy most outsiders never consider. Climbing the ladder gives you influence, but it slowly removes something else, your normal life. The higher you rise, the harder it becomes to explain your work. Friends drift away, relationships strain under secrets that cannot be shared. Years pass in foreign cities under different names. You miss birthdays, you miss funerals, and eventually the system becomes part of who you are. Because when you retire from an organization that officially doesn't exist, there is no ceremony. No press release. No public recognition. Your career disappears into sealed archives. And somewhere out in the world, a younger officer is sitting in a cafe, watching someone who doesn't know they're being watched. Beginning the climb you just finished. That is the reality of power inside the agency that doesn't exist. Invisible work, invisible people, holding together systems that almost nobody ever sees.